So, you want to be a welder? I've been a welder for almost 20 years, just going on my 20th year now, and I'm the kind of welder that welds just about everything. Always worked in fabrication shops, and when you work at a fabrication shop, you learn to weld pretty much all metals because everything will come your way. Aluminum, stainless steel, steel, titanium, magnesium, it can be pretty much anything. Brasses, bronze, anything like that. They get a little rare. What you're going to need to do to become a welder, you're going to have to take one of two routes to become a welder. One is the traditional way of basically getting a job as a welder and working your way up through trial and error and as a apprentice working at a welding company. Going that way through the school of hard knocks, you will have to start at the very bottom. You'll work at a metal shop where you'll be the guy running the saw. You'll be lugging the steel, running the forklift, doing a lot of lifting, a lot of grinding, the painting. You're going to do the really crappy jobs at a welding company if you go that route. You're going to have to do that for many years. You'll begin to learn to weld when they're short of their professional men, or it'll be a job where there's 10,000 of one thing to be welded, the exact same weld over and over and over. They'll just throw you into the job and say, there you go, start welding, and you better do a good job or you're going to be fired. So that's one way to go. You'll have to work your way up over many, many years. It'll take probably 15 to 20 years of learning things the hard way, and in the end, you will be a pretty decent metal worker. But it'll be a little bit of a rougher road that way. The better way to go is the technical way of going to a community college or a private school of some sort that teaches trades, a vocational school of some sort. Going that route, it's going to cost you some money. I know down in the United States that sort of training will cost you between $5,000 and $10,000, and in Canada here where I live, it's pretty much the same. It's about a $7,000 course. It takes 1 year here, and you can take more courses in welding, and you could make it as much as a 2-year course. When you get out of school, you're still an apprentice. You're not a journeyman until you've done so many hours. Here in Canada, it's about 2,000 hours per level. So you'll be a C-class welder, work your way to a B class, A class, and then you'll write an interprovincial, which will give you a red seal. The red seal program is recognized in many places around the world. Every country may have a different version of it. The bureaucracy is completely different in every country. It may not even be called a red seal in other countries, but they all have their equivalent of sort of the top tier, the trades, and the top certification, which means you've pretty much mastered your trade. That can be done in only 3 or 4 years here in Canada. I find it hard to call somebody who's been a welder for 4 years a master of welding. I honestly didn't think that I was a great metal worker until I had done about 10 years in the trade. And after that, you'd seen most things come your way, and you'd dealt with most metal circumstances and issues. The welding business itself can be kind of 2 different directions as well. You can end up a welder in a big shop that does nothing but heavy steel work, plate work. You may end up in a shipyard building ships. That can be fairly tedious work. you'll want to stay fit, and you need to be the kind of person that doesn't get bored easily with your job, because welding is very boring work, and in those situations, because you're just looking at a welding bead all day long, every day, long days. The nice thing about it is that it does pay very well. Most welders never complain of not having enough money, but they do work very hard for their money. Typical pay, it can range a lot. It depends on where you are and what the shortage of people is like, what the local industries are. It can really range wildly. I've seen companies looking for welders. They expected, a trained welder, didn't want to pay more than 12 bucks an hour, which to me was crazy. Welder should never work for anything less than $14 or $15 an hour. And it can go as high as $25 to $30 an hour as a typical professional welder. I've made these sorts of pay ranges before. Shipbuilding, things like that, high value job sites tend to pay very well. Working in the oil patch in Alberta pays very, very well. It was upwards of $40 to $50 an hour. And, but you work pretty hard for that money. And you were isolated. Now, as a welder, the safety world is going to bombard you. It's a dangerous trade. We all know it's dangerous. We know there's a multitude of hazards, and you're going to want to embrace the safety world as soon as you get into it. You're just going to want to learn to be safe around other people. If you try to ignore safety in this day and age in a welding business, you're not going to last very long. The old days of just kind of toughing your way through it are gone. You won't last very long. You'll likely get fired if you have too many if you disregard safety too much. So when it comes to your basic safety gear in welding, you're going to wear a welding respirator, much like this one. They're actually not that uncomfortable. You can get them even better than this one. They're silicone now, and they're very comfortable. You can wear them all day long. You can also get what's called Scott packs, or they're called other things. But it's a battery pack on the back, and it pumps fresh air into your helmet, a sealed helmet. And you don't breathe any dirt at all. It's pretty good, but not a lot of companies will supply that. Companies that do a lot of work in aluminum, stainless steel, they'll supply it because welding those materials is quite hazardous. One thing you're going to really notice about the welding trade, if you do get into it, is that it is incredibly technical. That tends to surprise a lot of people when they become welders or decide to become welders, is how much science they have to learn when they go to school. When you go to school, they're going to teach you everything, like how the metal was made, how it's all classified, welding symbols, which are very complicated to learn. In my opinion, a bit of an archaic system. Quite likely you'll work at many different companies in your career as a welder. A lot of jobs, they may take 3 months to 6 months to get the job done. There will often be a big layoff, and everybody goes home, and you don't know how long you're going to be laid off, so you start looking for another job at another welding company. And so the process goes on and on throughout your career. Many welders I've spoke with, and myself included, have worked at dozens of different welding companies. It gets so bad on the resume that you may leave out the ones you only work a month or two, just because it looks like you quit, but It's just the way, it's just the nature of the business. You travel a lot, and you'll go where the work is. And within the business, it's well understood that you could have a list a mile long on your resume that you've worked at so many different shops, but it generally won't be looked down upon, because that's just the nature of the business. Like I said, it's a fairly hazardous business. As safe as you can be, you're still going to get hurt. It's very hard to avoid injury in this trade. Being in very uncomfortable positions all day long is very common. Sometimes you're inside of a hole, inside of a ship, and you're just in the most cramped, miserable places, and you could be there for hours welding up over your head, dropping hot sparks all down your shirt and your pants, and even though you're wearing all this safety gear, it's inevitable that you will get injured. It's not as bad as the old days, but you will get some burns. Hopefully they won't be too severe. Spark burns are very common. You'll get them on a daily basis as a welder. Sometimes they can be fairly bad. But you'll heal up and you'll be fine, and you'll move on to another project. You really have to watch your eyes, because you're grinding all the time. Other people around you are grinding all the time. You're going to want to always wear safety glasses. Don't skimp on your glasses. If they give you allowance, go buy really good ones that are comfortable. The more comfortable they are, the more likely you're going to wear them. So wear good glasses and good comfortable gloves. Hot gloves will tend to come off more often than comfortable gloves. If you wear, you're going to have to wear fairly warm boots, because they have to be very thick to protect you from burns and sparks and crushed feet. And you're going to hurt your back, and you're going to strain muscles, and you're going to get injured fairly often in this business, and that's just a fact. It's really hard to avoid injury. You'll have to be up for that when you get into this business. If you're not a strong person, I don't recommend this trade to you. I've seen some people who are quite petite. I ain't saying women can't do this job. I've seen many women that were quite capable, but I have seen some women who were a bit small for this job. And what happens is people have to carry a lot of heavy things to do their job, heavy leads, heavy welders, heavy grinders and equipment, and smaller people tend to not be able to do their job as hard as other people. If you're a small frame person, fairly fragile in your demeanor, I don't recommend the trade to you. You should do something else more suited to what you're capable of physically. It is a very physically demanding job. Why torture yourself by getting into something that's going to brutalize your body? So if you're not a fairly rugged individual, I don't suggest you become a welder. So if any of that sounds good to you, get into the trade. It's rewarding in many ways. It has its drawbacks, much like any job, but welding does have some issues that you need to be aware of before you become a welder. It's been rewarding for me. I've learned a lot from welding and metalworking in general, and if I had to do it over again, I'd probably be a carpenter.